Hey guys, what's happening? So before we get into Avengers Armageddon Issue 1, we gotta talk some more about Chip Zdarsky's Captain America series that leads right into it, because this series is going crazy and I feel like nobody's talking about it. So with that said, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so coming back, the first thing we do is pick up with Nick Fury and his new S.H.I.E.L.D. team in Latvia, where Steve Rogers is still AWOL. Because when Steve agreed to come to Latvia with Fury to make sure Latvia didn't have any weapons of mass destruction, Steve still didn't know if he can really trust the new S.H.I.E.L.D. for obvious reasons. Then after that, with them arriving in Latvia and quickly getting friction from General Ross, things got even sketchier when Steve got a closer look at the three rivaling factions: True Latvia, the Latvian Liberators, and the Homeland Party, who all had different ideas of how Latvia should move forward. Because with meeting the leaders of these groups, Steve learned that Salvation, the leader of True Latvia, had been Marius Wolf this whole time. And this is the same guy both Steve and David Colton met not long after Steve was found in the ice and turned down the Avengers to go back to the military. Because at the time when General Ross sent Steve and David Colton on a secret mission to Latvia, a deal was made with the young Marius Wolf, who wanted to overthrow Latvia's new leader at the time, Dr. Doom. And even when we covered this in the full story of Our Secret Wars, we knew that Marius Wolf didn't just want to get rid of Doom, but he wanted to take his place. And that's basically what he's doing now. But over the years, the fight for Latvia has changed him, and he's a much darker person than the guy that Steve once knew. And we got proof of this later when Steve met the leader of the Homeland Party, who had turned out to be Elena Von Doom. And with Steve's secret side mission continuing by him following her, this led to him discovering that the Homeland Party and the Latvian Liberators had started working together against Salvation and his party, True Latvia, which unfortunately led to Steve discovering that Salvation had piled up over 400 bodies of Latvian citizens while trying to seem like this noble leader. And now at this time, Steve, he's already told Fury about the bodies he's found, and he let Fury know that he's going after Salvation, which is totally not their mission, which is why he's considered to have gone AWOL. And even though Fury's upset about it, he's like, I get it. So Fury just continues on his end by telling Trevor Tambling that he's found one of Doom's former generals who hasn't fled the city yet. So he tells Trevor to take the team and find out what that guy knows about the weapons. But while Fury's talking to Trevor, Steve radios over to Joe, and he tells Joe over the radio, if you can't talk, just listen. And he says here, tell the others, Salvation is killing people, civilians. He needs to be stopped. And I'm going to do just that, alongside the Latvian Liberators. And I want you all to join us to do what's right. This is no longer an investigation, no longer skirmishes and fights. This is war. And now back over with Steve, who again is with Mara and Malor Sandu and Elena Von Doom. He lets them know that they got to go after Salvation with a direct approach. And to do this, they're going to need numbers. And to get the people of Latvia to rally behind one voice, that voice has to be Elena's. So he lets her know that he's going to march right by her side and risk his life like any other Latvian. And at first, this has Elena hesitant, because a lot of those bodies that they found, they were bodies of Latvians who listened to her. But eventually she agrees to do it, because they're not going to get this done without an army. And now back over with Salvation when he gets the word of how Steve Rogers beat up their whole camp. Because after Steve saw all those bodies stacked up, he put hands to Salvation's whole camp. Brothers and sisters, everybody got it. Like you guys remember, Rogers was seeing red. But when one of the guys who got away tells Salvation, Salvation's just like, oh, so you abandoned them. So he just pops this guy. But now that all of these bodies have been discovered, Salvation is informed that he can only assume that the UN's going to find out next. And when they find out, they're likely going to send more heat his way. And like we saw, he's been keeping an eye on Fury. So he knows Fury's still searching for weapons, and he has men trailing him too. But then it's here where he hears Elena giving a speech in the distance, with her saying loved ones have been found dead in a mass grave at the hands of True Latvia, under the orders of Salvation, the man who sits in Castle Doom, on the throne with empty promises of democracy. I speak of peace, of using our words to bring about change. I believe in my heart, violence is a slippery slope. An empty chamber in a gun that's been fired simply begs for another bullet. But we're dying. Our friends and family are dying. This is a fight, and we need fighters. Take safety if you need to. Protect the weak. And if you're willing to fight for freedom, to stop the deaths of our people, join us. Pick up your weapons, lift your fists high, and give Latvia a future. And now all of this is translated from Latvian. And with Steve knowing how to speak Latvian a little bit, he's basically like, ooh, I want to say something too. And that's where Steve goes on to say, and to Salvation, to Marius Wolf, I stand with these people. I fight with them. I fought Adolf Hitler. I fought the Red Skull. So think long and hard about what that makes you, and take this moment of clarity to surrender peacefully before we drag your broken body from your castle. And now when Marius hears this, even though he doesn't say a word, you can just tell he's over there looking like, okay, all right, bring it. But now as the new S.H.I.E.L.D. team's making their way to find Doom's old general, to shake him down and find out where the weapons are. Now that they're away from Fury, Joe tells the others here like, hey, Cap hit me up. He said we need to go with him. But Trevor, who's in charge of this mission, he stops the Jeep and he's basically like, look, this is the assignment. Rogers chose to go rogue because he does what he does. Because unlike us, he's never had a job. And right there, I'm just like, whoa, Trev, take it easy. But then this becomes a bit of a debate between Joe and Trevor, where on one hand, Trevor's like, it's our job to find these weapons that'll kill everyone. And Joe's like, yeah, well, we might be hired guns, but we got to do what's right. Because like we were told before, Joe left the military and became a mercenary because he didn't like having to do missions that he didn't believe in. And now when Trevor tells Joe here that this is him being blinded by his hero worship, Joe makes it clear as day why going after Salvation is the better choice. Because right now they're heading towards a guy who might know where the weapons are, as opposed to going after Salvation, who is definitely the #1 person you want to keep away from those weapons. So really, taking the fight directly to Salvation is the better strategy, and Charles agrees with him. But Red Widow, she sides with Trevor, and she says it's because if any of these guys came to Moscow and tried to overthrow her government based on the words of a man wearing an American flag, then she'd hunt them all down. And if that's what the new Shield's gonna do as their first move after their previous disgrace that was Secret Empire, then it will be their final move. So Charles looks over at Red Widow because he's been trying to put the Mac down on her for a little while. But he looks to Red Widow and he tries to convince her based on the morality of all this, because people are dying and they have a chance to stop it. But Red Widow doesn't budge. She's like, it's not her call to make, and they're still doing right by finding these weapons. And Steve Rogers is just being selfish because, like all Americans, he wants to feel good in the moment by quote-unquote fighting with the downtrodden while a ticking bomb sits somewhere in the city. So she tells them all, I choose to put aside my desire for glory and save everyone from the threat they don't know about. And now as they're all going back and forth, it's go time for Steve and the others. Because now with the help of the locals who heard Alina's speech and they're able to fight, Steve's got the backup and somewhat of a plan, because when they go marching in, True Latveria just opens fire. And as they're doing this and holding the line, with Alina giving another speech here, she mentions something very important. We'll see that in a moment. But as part of Steve's plan to get him and the others closer in, he's got a B team waiting on the side, ready to light up Salvation's men, giving Cap and the others a path towards Castle Doom. And now when I mentioned Alina saying something important during her speech, it's here where she reveals to the people of Latveria for the first time that her full name is Alina von Doom. Because before she didn't want to share this, because she thought it would be no different than Hitler's cousin coming out from the shadows like, hey, let's do better this time. And so I get it. It makes sense why she kept her full name a secret. But in this case, I'd argue that it energizes the people of Latveria even more, because they've seen her work before they knew her name. And now that it's time to fight, they know that she has the people's best interest at heart. And we see examples of this as Steve leads the small army closer to Castle Doom, with people like Miro, who's the woman that Steve met back when he wanted to get to know the people of Latveria better, who at the time told Steve that she'd given up hope for a better Latveria. But now she's picked up a gun, she's got her grandpa to watch her son, and she's heading out. And now back over with Cap, in the fight, in the march towards Castle Doom. One of Salvation's men kind of cracked the code here, because dude's basically like, you know what, when Cap throws that shield, he ain't got no shield. So Cap gets shot in the shoulder, because what he's gonna do, block it with the shield that he don't have? So yeah, dude cracked the code here. And now when it seems like all hope is lost for Cap, Joe comes in with a shield toss alongside of Charles, which shows us now that these two guys decided to go AWOL along with Captain America, because they believe helping Steve stop Salvation is the best way to end this. And now Steve, who's happy to see them, he expresses his gratitude. Look, he's over here like, man, it took y'all long enough. But these guys can't stop now. They gotta keep pushing because more soldiers are coming. And now with this fight going well into the next morning, Alina von Doom continues to push her people forward, using her words. And it pains her to do this because she wanted peace. She didn't want more people to die here. But she goes on saying, I wish there were some other way, a way without violence. But even in our times of peace, violence hung over us, an unending anxiety of what King Doom would do to us if we offended him. Implied violence, violence that ignited every nerve within us. So I say to you now, even if you fight today, you haven't given up your peace. You're ensuring it. And that's where Alina von Doom turns to the side and she sees Salvation's men have found her. And even when they attack, she still manages to get a few more words out. And Steve's looking back like he sees where this is going. But Alina von Doom goes on with her saying, if you have to be a warrior for peace. Be a warrior for the people. Then after that, she says, Captain, and all you hear is bang. And it's over for her. And at this time, with Steve and the others reaching Castle Doom, he hears the voice of Salvation tell him, that sound you just heard was your finger on the trigger, Captain. This is you. This is once again American interference. You are in my country, Steve Rogers, and Salvation will be your doom. And now when Salvation says this, he steps out with his new armor, which is very Doom-like. And now on one hand, I want to call it like a Temu Doom, but on the other hand, I'm really digging the look, so I'm kind of torn between the two. But I will say, if Salvation called his faction the Salvation Army, then all bets would have been off and I would have just had to go in. But now this guy is fully committed to being the villain. And as he charges up, Cap tells Mara and her brother Malor to get behind him because he knows M. Bison's about to boom on them. And just as a bit of extra context here, Salvation looks at Mara and Malor Sandu almost like what he used to be back when he was trying to overthrow Doom, and he's kind of disgusted by them because of how far he's evolved from that version of himself. So he tells them here, Mara and Malor Sandu, the thorns in Latveria's side, seeking control over our proud people, seeking power. But you don't know power, the weight of it, and you certainly don't know how to use it. And even now Steve is like, this is a much different guy than the Marius Wolf I knew a decade ago, who was a young rebel, a man who had seen too much, yet still had hope for the future. But the years ate away at that hope, and he convinced himself that only he could see what needed to be done. Only he could lead his people, and he'd do anything to hold on to that idea. But now that it's popping, Salvation's not playing around. And with Malor seeing his sister Mara hurt badly from the initial attack, he just goes off. And now with Salvation focusing more on Steve and telling him things like, look at these toy soldiers you brought. You know, referring to Charles, who's also from an American organization who did nothing while Doom was in power. But to Salvation, this is like the US seeing an opening and trying to take it. But now with Malor going off here, guns blazing, Salvation just turns around and catches him by the face. And he just point blank pops Buddy's head. Because again, he just sees Malor as a younger version of him who was trying to overthrow Doom. So now that Salvation has accepted his role as the villain, he's not trying to hide these kills anymore. And now when Steve and Charles see this, they're looking at Salvation like, bro, what in the Latvian Darth Vader just happened? But Salvation, he stops the fight here, and he tells Cap that he's got to go because one of his fellow insurgents just sold him out. And now this is what takes us back over to Trevor Tamling and Red Widow, who again were the only two that stuck to the mission, to chase down one of Doom's previous generals to find out about the weapons. And now when they catch up with this guy who's just now trying to leave, dude should have been gone. He tries to tell them that he doesn't know anything, but quickly Trevor's like, I don't believe you. And Red Widow's like, neither do I. They make him talk. Now the information they got from the General Klavic, it led them to a specific statue at Crescent Square, which is a name that'll be important later on as well. So Trevor's like, okay, I get it. Doom's got a lot of statues, so whatever he's hiding is likely within this statue. So he starts shooting it to break it up. But that's when Red Widow's like, nah, it's probably underneath it. So she just blows the whole statue up sky high, because it's more likely that it's here trying to cover up something. And she's right, because the next thing they see is a case sitting underneath. And that's where Trevor's like, I would have appreciated some warning, but it looks like we have ourselves some buried treasure. So from there he goes to pick it up and he's like, okay, let's finish this and be on our way. Only for Red Widow to step up and put a hot one in his dome, which right there shows us who the traitor was. I mean, as soon as she does this, she gets radioed by Charles, who's trying to warn her like, hey, Widow, Salvation may be heading your way. He said something about us betraying Steve. I don't know what's going on, but please be careful. And it's like, man, little does he know that she's the traitor. So yeah, following this, I still want to do one, maybe two videos before getting into Avengers Armageddon issue 1, because the lead up coming from this Captain America series is crazy. And there's still a couple of wild reveals that we got to talk about. So with that said, subscribe and stay tuned because there's more on the way. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. All right, later.